Hi, and welcome to part one of the stop motion animation series. So in part one, I'm going to show you how to use the phone app so that you can go ahead and record your footage for your stop motion. All of the pieces of software and apps that we'll be using in this process of stop motion movies is going to be free and available to anyone. The only thing that might be a little tricky is that we will be using iMovie for video editing, and so if you're not on a Mac, you won't have access to iMovie. But you should be able to use any video editing software for that step. Okay, so we are using a free app that's found on both the Google Play Store and the iTunes Store, and it's called Stop Motion Studio, and this is the free version. There is a paid version that is $5, which gives you a lot of extra bells and whistles that are really awesome. So I've got a 3-second little movie over here on the right of a little mint can going across my desk here, but I'm going to go ahead and start off really briefly and just choose New Movie. So by choosing New Movie, you can go back by tapping up here in the top left and get back to the gallery screen or the library screen. I'm going to go up here and tap on the top right, which allows me to go ahead and start filming. And there's my camera. Go ahead and adjust my tripod there. Get my hand out of the way. Okay, so you can see that you've got some controls up top. That's for affecting the video, or sorry, the photos. You've got of course, the red button over here on the right to actually take the shot. You've got a timer here underneath the red button that you can go ahead and press, and you can actually set it up. It's off right now, but you can go ahead and turn it on. You can do 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and that's a timer. Ooh, lost our camera here. That's a timer so that you can go ahead and be in front of the camera, and then it will go ahead and take the photo for you, which is really nice. In the bottom right-hand corner, it tells you what frame they're currently on, which is, of course, great. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to start with this piece of candy that's starting over here. I'll take the shot. So now we've got our second frame, and now comes the important part. We want to move the subject to the next frame, but we need to see the previous frame. So over here on the left-hand side, you'll see a little slider, and if you drag that down a little bit, now you can move your subject. You can move your subject, and you should be able to see the ghosted image, or what's called the onion skinning of the previous frame. So you can then go ahead and take the shot, move it, take the shot, and again, we could have this little piece of candy driving around on my desktop, over the keyboard, over the laptop, all that kind of good stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with any more of this. I'm going to go ahead and go back. So you can see I took 7 frames, 8 frames it looks like there, and you can just scrub through, which is really nice and immediate. You can, of course, press play in the bottom right-hand corner, and it will go ahead and play immediately, which is great. Very important is up here on the top right, actually second from the top right, you'll see a little, what looks like a gear, and you can see how long your movie is at how many frames per second. So the default is 5 frames per second, and right now that would put me at 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of editing here. Let's say I go to frame, whoops, let's say if I scrub through and I realize frame 4 of 8 has a problem, maybe my hand was in the way. If you tap your frame, you can then go ahead and you can do some pretty important stuff. You could go ahead and capture again, you could copy it and do a little bit of video editing here, but I wouldn't recommend that because we can do that later in iMovie. You can delete, which is of course quite important. If you realize a mistake right then and there, you can take care of it. You could also delete it later inside iMovie when we get to that step. So these are the editing features. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let's assume that we're happy with it. And there's a whole bunch of other things, like you can add on the left-hand side, you can click on the plus symbol and you can click here and you can add other images, and then there's some other extra features that you can unlock and pay for and all those kinds of stuff. There's a little microphone above it where you can go ahead and you can access the microphone, and it now says ready to record. Okay, so you can actually do a little bit of audio recording there as well. But if we're going to bring in iMovie to the equation here, you don't really need the feature, but it's nice to have. So I'm going to go back, and here's my information. And again, I can delete this project if I want to. You can see that 7 frames takes up 15 megabytes. Okay, so here's my little bit of a longer movie. And if I press play, you can see a little bit longer, not any more fun, but there it is. So right now it's coming in at 2 seconds at 8 frames per second. I can go ahead and up that to 12 frames per second. Of course, it'll get smoother, but it will be shorter. So it's moving along pretty smoothly there. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back down to about 8 frames per second. Okay, so there we go. It's got that nice stop motion look that I'm looking for. Okay, so now that I'm done with that, I'm going to go back to the gallery. And on this screen right here, I want to now get it to my cloud service. So I'm going to click on or tap on the second icon there, the little share icon. We basically, I've tried all of these options, and the one that I think is best for our scenario in general is the first one, export movie. I tried all images because we want all of the raw images, but when you do that, it exports it as it exports it with the name, and then the format is called .export. And I thought it was going to be like a .zip file where I could unzip it and I would see all of the raw images inside. But I could absolutely not get a hold of all of the raw images. So we had to get a little handy here. And I chose export movie. And then you've got all of your options here. I just went straight to Google Drive. And it might ask you to go ahead and upload it might ask you to put in your Google account information. So you would need to do that at that point. So now it's uploading. Okay, so that's it for this part 1. Hopefully you get it to this point, and then in part 2 we'll go ahead and we'll get it from Google Drive and we'll go into our next app. If you do know of a better way to export this, please leave it in the comments below. I'm hoping that there's a way that we can just export it as raw images, and we don't have to go through these one or two extra steps. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy.